Hi everyone, here's the Book Chemist once again, and today I'll review the Tartar Steppe by Dino Buzzati. As I call him in the somewhat clickbaity thumbnail picture, the Italian Kafka potentially. I must say from the start that I only know two things about Buzzati as an author himself, and one of these two things is that Kafka is indeed the other author that he was most relentlessly compared to, a fact that pained him quite a lot. Authors are generally quite annoyed when there's this one major literary figure that they are compared to time and again. He famously said that Buzzati said that his critics compared him to Kafka even when he was just writing a telegram. Before I talk about the second thing I know, I should mention that this review is sponsored by Skillshare, an online community of creators and experts in a variety of topics, and a community of passionate fans of so many pursuits from illustration, design, life skills, writing, and more. A fantastic place to develop your passions and learn new skills. I'll talk about it more at the end of the video. The first 1,000 people who click on the link in the description box will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. The second thing I know about Buzzati is that he loved mountains. He had a deep fascination for this peculiar, otherworldly type of landscape and often placed them at the heart of his fiction, and the Tartar Steppe is almost entirely set in a mountain fortress overseeing a mountain pass on the border between an unnamed kingdom and the lands to the north, where this mysterious danger the Tartars are supposed to come from one day. Are they mythical? Are they an actual source of danger? Who's to say? This fascination for mountains is a very common trait among northern Italians. It reminds me very closely of that fascination that you find in many English artists for the countryside. The mountains are seen as a separate landscape that's within reach of the city and of the main centers of society, but that at the same time is in stark contrast to their games and their dynamics, and because of its brutal and beautiful characteristics, its sublime nature even, it almost appears as an alternate reality, a place that does not obey to the rules of civilization and to the constraints of society, and that for this reason places the people who travel through it and who experience it in a more direct contact with a supposed source of life. Call it nature, call it God, call it what you will. I definitely experienced this as somebody who grew up in Monza, just an hour's drive from the Alps. Many of my friends are into hiking and they would go to the mountains every weekend whenever they had the chance. I was not into that sort of stuff. I'm very much of a city kid. I am most comfortable sitting in a cafe, or why not even better, sitting at home. What this fascination for mountains means for Tartar Steppe is, first and foremost, quite a lot of mountain talk. The Tartar Steppe is about mountains in the same way as the novels of Joseph Conrad are about the sea and sailing, or the novels of Cormac McCarthy are about horses. There is quite a lot of technical dialogue. It wasn't necessarily always apparent to me why taking a certain path or trying to reach the peak at a given time of day was an especially stupid or silly or daring or risky decision. But at the same time, it is part of the experience of experiencing these specialized and unique worlds, to, even just as a passenger, even just as a tourist, try and appreciate some of their dynamics and some of the ways in which they shape the men that are used to being immersed in these scenarios. In this specific case, the way the mountains shape the attitudes and the psyche of men who are used to harsh environments where a daring decision might mean death for you and your fellow travelers, really. A certain fascination with heroism and acts of daring is really strong in the novel. Many of its characters are chasing these moments of glory and these final, even tragic acts as the sole purpose of their life. And this tension is strictly connected with the main theme or the main propelling force of the book. Tartar Steppe is set again in this military fortress and revolves around the lives of these men who have to go through the same tedious routine day after day and time and again, in the hope that perhaps one day these Tartars, this possibly fictional enemy that they're facing, will descend upon them, and in a final act of death and heroism will give meaning to what they're doing. The one point I want to make about the Tartar Steppe, if you take away one thing from my review of the book, is that for all that it's set in a fortress and virtually all of its characters are military men, the Tartar Steppe is not really a book about military life. Not in the way, say, Catch-22 is a book about military life and war. In fact, the military life that's described in the book always feels very formal and very manneristic and very careful. The interactions between the officers that occur time and again in the novel are always dictated by the rules of politeness and formality, and military life appears to be mostly a matter of asking please to be transferred to a different place and biding your time as you wait for a promotion, maybe trying and gain the favor of a figure of some importance in order to game the system. Even at the beginning of the novel, when the narrator is reminiscing about the bullying and nepotism that he experienced at the military academy, these passages didn't really speak to me about martial institutionalization. If anything, they reminded me more of somebody describing their bullying experiences in high school. In fact, I will say that Tartar Steppe is not about military life, it's about any type of employment, any type of career, which is dictated and ruled by constant and never-ending boredom. The type of office job or clerical position where the usefulness of your labor, the fruit of what you're doing on a daily basis, is not immediately apparent to you and may actually very well be completely null. The fortress where the novel is set is likely to remind you of your office if you have a bad office job, the type of place where people in power wield their power according to their whims and just to give meaning even to the tedium of their position, where people either game the system to try and get away from it as soon as possible, or else create these little fantasies for themselves, these ideas that actually they're superior to their position and if only they wanted they could go away from it anytime, or that one day all of this nonsense work that they're doing and that they're wasting their life for will acquire meaning through those types of meaningless heroic final acts, like for instance the invasion of a foreign army finally giving meaning to all this time wasted patrolling this mountain pass. Tartar Steppe is about military life, but only in the way so many of the institutions we have to traverse and inhabit, be it our company or our school, potentially our institution or faculty, resemble military life, especially in the senselessness of some of their habits or even in their hierarchy and in their structure, because it deals at such length with these themes, with the unfairness and oppressiveness of being stuck in a job where you're not given the possibility to develop yourself and where your true worth is not recognized. Tartar Steppe is at constant risk of appearing self-commiserating, and at times the novel does look like a little bit of a highbrow whining session. I will say though that for all of this commiseration, the novel also presents quite a few moments that are truly luminous. Moments where the characters oppose this bad hand that life has dealt them and decide instead to look within themselves, within their minds, for possible way outs, for possible ways of still preserving their dignity and still preserving their integrity, even in the face of this constant frustration and constant oppression. I guess it is up to the reader to decide whether these passages are just part of that same self-commiserating game, or look how dignified I am even when the whole world is out to get me. And I suppose that readers of different temperament will read these messages in a positive light, as a redeeming feature for the book and its characters, or as just another illusion that the characters decide to cultivate in order to give meaning to their lives. What about the story at the heart of Tartar Steppe? There is a plot in the novel, a supposedly exciting one of danger and war. There's quite a lot of characters peopling the novel, although I will say that only the protagonist, I find, is a fully fledged, well-rounded character. The others appear a bit flimsy and don't really go much beyond their archetype. That plot is supposed to be thrilling and engrossing, but never really takes off. It always appeared a bit opaque to me. It was different to be stirred by the movements of this bizarre army, if there even is an army to the north of the border, as they pursue their mysterious purposes and aims. And I think the reason why it's difficult, or at least it was difficult for me to care about the plot, is that all of the book, it feels to me, every single word in it is aimed at conveying its metaphor or its symbol, or call it what you will, this parable of modern life and of tedium in oppressive office jobs that is at the heart of Tartar Steppe. Like I'm sure most of you, I tend to prefer books where the metaphor and the story go hand in hand instead of one only being a vehicle for the other. It's the reason why a book such as Moby Dick is such a masterpiece, because for all that it tells us quite a lot of things about human life and experience and human interactions and so on and so forth, it is also very much a book about a group of people hunting a monster. But at the same time, I'm not saying this, I'm not talking about Tartar Steppe in this way to diss it or to dismiss it, because there is quite a lot of beauty to be gained from the book, and it is in many ways an illuminating experience. In fact, the way I experienced the book and the way my feelings toward it shifted reminded me a lot of the way I read Kafka, or that other author who is a bit of the poor man's Kafka, which is H.P. Lovecraft. When I read Kafka's short stories, very often I am not necessarily loving every minute of it. I am not necessarily appreciating them on a word-by-word basis. Sometimes I struggle to get engrossed in the dynamics of their characters and the turmoil of their psyche and the evolution of their plots. But the more I reach the story's conclusion and the more the full picture emerges from the story, the full picture of the symbol or the theme, or call it what you will, whatever it is that this story wants to talk about, whatever revelation this story is trying to convey, the more that picture emerges, the more that feeling of not really getting it is substituted with quite a beautiful feeling of astonishment and awe. And the same happened very much with Tartar Steppe. For all that at times it felt a little bit as tedious as the life it was describing, just a tiny bit, toward the end, once you can step away, look at it, contemplate it as a whole, it formed quite a beautiful and quite a stunning picture, one that I'm sure I'll bring with me throughout my future adventures in reading. And if it wasn't clear from this parallel, if it wasn't clear from the description of the book as a thinly veiled adventure in the boredom and senselessness of bureaucratic life, yes, Dino Buzzati is 100% the Italian Kafka. The parallel is there, and they are two authors on the very same trajectory. I understand that Buzzati didn't appreciate the parallel. It's completely fair, and it's a fair opinion, but I think it's there. And if you are a Kafka fan, or a fan in general of imaginative, fantastic literature, I think Buzzati is an author that should be in your radar. If what I mentioned in the review sounds interesting, I think you will probably find a lot to appreciate in this somewhat hidden gem in Italian, contemporary 20th century Italian literature. I'm especially curious to hear from people who read the book in English, because I must confess that the book's Italian, as in its language and its style, was one of the things that I appreciated the least. It felt a bit contrite and opaque at times. It didn't really help me progress through the narrative. It didn't feel transparent, but at the same time it didn't even feel beautifully elaborate. It just felt a bit difficult for me, and not in a really pretty way. But hey, the people out there who read it in Italian and have a different opinion, I'm also curious to hear from you and why you appreciated Buzzati's style so much, really. Thank you so much for watching the review, thank you to my patrons for always supporting the channel, and thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring the video. As I said at the beginning, Skillshare is a beautiful community of creators and passionate fans of so many different pursuits. It's a beautiful environment to cultivate your passions and learn new skills through classes that are always collaborative. You always get a very good relationship with the people giving the class and with the other students taking it. There's a really nice supportive atmosphere on Skillshare, and you can take these classes at your own individual pace. They are divided in smaller videos that you can watch in a single afternoon, or you can just watch one video that makes up a class every day for a week. You can take them at whatever pace you prefer. Today I'm going to recommend a class called Data Visualization by Nadi Bremer. It's a fascinating topic, and it deals with how to present your data whenever you are collecting information for your own personal life related to your passions, or maybe it's something you have to do for work, how to present this data in an engaging and fascinating and intuitive manner. I definitely love to take care of my personal accounting and try and make the most sense from this sort of information through graphs and through other presentations of this sort. As you probably know if you watched my video, I have a bit of a nerdy passion for ranking my books and my records and these sorts of things, and I quite love to play around with these forms of data. And a class like this is definitely going to be useful too for your professional life, and it's one of those skills that is going to give you a certain edge in the office too, when it comes to presenting your data, the data you may be analyzing or working on. And for a video that deals so much with office life, I thought this was a rather appropriate class to recommend. Just another example of how Skillshare's classes can be both useful, stimulating, and really truly interesting. Do check out that link in the description box. The first 1,000 people to click on it will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. Even beyond the free trial, Skillshare is really cheap. A yearly subscription is less than $10 a month. Thank you again for watching the video, and bye everybody.